Hey everybody, Tim Sackett back with another edition of HR Famous. And it's just me today, and I want to do. It's middle of the summer, like everybody's kind of like bored out doing holiday stuff. It's kind of slow for a lot of people, so I just wanted to come on and share. I just had gotten back a couple of weeks ago from SHRM Annual Conference in San Diego. So shout out to all those people that were out there in San Diego with the beautiful weather. It was like a high of like 71, 72 every day, low of like 63, whatever. Seemed like kind of like perfect weather. Usually they have like they call it like the June gloom, like gray skies, stuff like that. They had a little bit of that like one morning, but for the most part, like the weather was amazing, which people, usually in San Diego believe that's the case. Um, but I wanted to debrief a little bit on annual, like what happened there. It's the largest HR conference in the world, so it's not something necessarily to be ignored. Even though there's a lot of people in our space, I think that try to act like it's not a big deal. It's a big deal when you bring that many people. Joe Biden was the closing kind of keynote. Even it wasn't really an individual speech, kind of like a more of a Q&A, but like still I mean, just last sitting president showing up to an HR conference is a major deal. It's not the first time a former president has spoken at SHRM. We've also had Bill Clinton, George Bush. So there's obviously again big deal for SHRM to be able to get a former president to come in from that standpoint. Um, I got to speak. I spoke on the 7 things that we fuck up in TA consistently and how to fix them. Obviously, I couldn't use the F word in SHRM. Kind of had to vanilla the title up a little bit, but the content's exactly the same. Um, had a full room, which is awesome. I believe I tell people ask me all the time, like, what's the best conference to go to? And I'm like, I mean, that's subjective because again, I love like the HR technology conference and I love going to like LinkedIn Talent Connect and Workday Rising, all for different reasons. I love SHRM Talent and SHRM Annual because the audience is so receptive to what I have to say. I don't know if that's everyone's experience that speaks at SHRM, but for me, and I tend to speak on TA topics. I've done a couple of HR topics too, which actually were really good. Um, but they just seem like the people that show up there. I always say like it's a top 10 percenter, right? People always kind of go, "Oh my gosh, assuring people are backwards and blah blah blah." The reality is you're talking about people who showed up at a conference to better themselves in their profession. So few actually do. Um, there was 25,000 plus HR people at SHRM. In the world of HR, that's less than 1% that are showing up to actually better themselves, to actually educate themselves, to get better. Um, I just find them like the community there is so vibrant in terms of people willing to like introduce themselves and share and ask questions openly in front of hundreds, if not thousands, of people in some of these rooms. And the people that are there that I speak with that also speak, they tend to feel the same way. Like it's just a really good audience to speak to from that standpoint. So that's why I love going there. There's a couple other reasons I love going there. One is, and I do this thing, and I really only do this at the SHRM conferences. It's the whole LinkedIn mobile app thing. So for those who don't know, if you're listening to you're going to be lost. I'm going to show people like right now on my phone. If you go into your LinkedIn app and you push in the search bar, you can get the little QR code thing. And you can just, people can like take a picture of it and they connect with you instantly. And so I love doing that when I start my talk at a SHRM is I'll take the first 5 minutes, and it's a valuable 5 minutes um, to say the whole reason you're here, the whole reason you go to a conference is to actually build a better network. At the end of the day, if you don't learn anything in a session, you should go back and have a dozen, 20, 50 different people that you've connected with that you can now reach out to and gather information, brainstorm, further your career. Like it's your community that you're building, this network that you're building is why, to me, is what the true value of why you go to an in-person conference. And so I spend that time. The room gets crazy loud. Everybody's talking, laughing. like the energy immediately goes through the roof. And then I have to tell them all to shut up and get back. Yeah, now it's my turn. I got 55 minutes to tell you something. Um, and I love doing that because again, no matter when you come in, like everybody comes in, they sit down and no one knows what's going to happen. And you can just, there's this weird kind of energy. And then all of a sudden you force people to say, hey, it's almost like I grew up Catholic and they do that thing where it's like, peace be with you and, shake hands with your neighbor and blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing um, with this is when you have people and you force people to say, hey, you have to connect with the people beside you, behind you, in front of you real quick. Get 5 connections before you leave. At the very thing, if I don't teach you anything, at the very least, you're going to leave with connecting with 5 other people. And what you see is that goes on beyond after my session's done and people are leaving. They're like, oh my gosh, it was so nice to meet you and let's stay connected and blah, blah, blah. And that's, to me, that's the value. Now, and I've gone into other sessions and everybody just kind of does the thing. They sit down, they leave. And again, I'm not telling everybody should do this. I'm just saying this works for me. I was talking to another speaker that did something completely different. But again, how do you raise that energy in the room and get people, give them something valuable right away? Now, again, there's probably people there going, I don't want to do this at all. This sucks. Oh, I just wanted to sit here and Tim tell me something. And so, okay, we'll do that. Um, this is an over exaggeration, but I'll say half the sessions had something to do with AI in the title. Um, of those, half of those were trying to scare you about AI, which, I think is a little concerning. I don't think it's what we want to do in terms of, again, I think we have to be respective of any kind of technology we bring into the workplace and in the good and the bad and everything in between that it could happen. But we tend to, I just found, and I'm not trying to disparage any individual speaker. I found overall the conversation around AI wasn't as helpful as I would like it to be. Um, and here's what it's really missing: is it's missing not use cases. God, there's everybody had like there's every vendor's like vomiting use cases, right? Ugh. Um, there's not real world AI stories being shared. And that leads me to 2 kind of like, outcomes here is that do we not have those? And I have heard some, and I try to share them every time I have them because I think it's super valuable to have real world use case of, hey, I turned this thing on in AI, and this is the process change it made, and this is how it impacted us, and then this is what we did with that extra capacity, or here's what made our change happen. Blah blah. To me, when an HR leader or a TA leader or anybody within our space shares that, is the most valuable thing you'll hear all week, all month. Vendors aren't sharing it, and that to me is a big kind of red flag because either you have nobody is using your AI that you're saying that you have that you're trying to sell to everybody, so you don't even have your current clients, right? Or the story they have isn't a good one. Um, Now, again, I have enough positive stories that I think, especially in the recruiting space, that I think there's some good things that are happening out there. I think we're just, I mean, again, we've always been slow to adopt technology in AI, in HR. Um, and to me, this is just another example of we're even though we're at this kind of like, kind of hype cycle tipping point, a lot of us just still aren't there. There's also a piece of this where we've been using AI, machine learning based algorithm technology within our tech stack in HR and TA for the better part of a decade now. And so even though the marketing side is pushing AI, and like the generative AI stuff, there's some of the stuff that we've probably already been using now. We just become aware that we're actually using it, right? From that standpoint. Um, so yeah, like a lot of that for sure. Folks, I get asked by a lot of people too, like, should I go to SHRM Annual? Should I go to a different SHRM? Because there's different like smaller conferences. If you're a TA person, I truly believe you should go to SHRM Talent before going to SHRM Annual for the more bang for your buck. I think there's more obviously directed recruiting sessions at SHRM Talent than there is. And there's probably as many recruiting sessions at SHRM Annual, but it's so scattered, right? Whereas you can go every single session at SHRM Talent and have something related to TA and recruiting. And at SHRM Annual, you're going to have to bounce around a little bit. Now, if you're an HR leader that has TA responsibility, you might want to both, right? You're going to go and like, oh, I need some legal updates and I need some compliance stuff and I need some, benefit stuff and I need some engagement stuff and all. I want some recruiting stuff. And so again, SHRM Annual is probably better than that. It's it's an amazing. I've run into so many people. It's their first time, and to see 25,000 HR people at a conference is overwhelming for a lot. The going into the expo center is like a carnival, like little carnival. It's crazy. And there's something like it's. I mean, people get just like they get blown away when they walk in, and they get overwhelmed by it. I truly believe, and we did this a little bit. Shout out to Samara at Transform. We did a little some expo. Um, what do you call it? I mean, basically, you're taking a group of people. So I might have like, let's say I'm at SHRM Annual, and I could have like 10 TA leaders, and I'm going to go, hey, let's go. I'm going to take you on a tour, and we're going to stop at a half a dozen recruiting technology places, right? And you're going to see how I interact with them, and we might do a little mini demo and do some Q&A, and then we're going to move to the next one. I think that would be really helpful at SHRM Annual for first timers because man, it is overwhelming for so many people from that standpoint. It's expensive. If you have the means, if your company's willing to kind of pay for you to go, do it. Like try it out. It's well worth the trip. If, like I said, why do we go to in-person conferences? You have to connect with people. Again, the education, the sessions are all amazing. You're going to take some things away, but also build that network, right? Build it for yourself from a professional standpoint of being able to engage with others outside of your function, your market, your state, your whatever. Um, and also build it, for your betterment of your career in terms of being able to, reach out to people when you decide you want that next job, whatever that might be.
Hey there, I'm Tim Boris, host of the Working Well podcast, where business strategy meets human sustainability. If you're an executive, a leader, or change maker ready to ditch burnout, build thriving teams, and drive real results, this is your next must listen. Tune in on the Work Defined Network or at timboris.com/podcast.
Getting ready for SHRM Annual, I put together a new. I love to give away something for free when I go, and so I always have like some kind of a downloadable whatever, right? That I can offer the audience. And so this year I built the top 100 recruiting technologies list, where I just ranked what I believe is the top 100 recruiting technologies, and it got a lot of push. There was some feedback, there was some fallout, there was people that were excited and happy, there was people that were not too excited about either not being on the list or where they landed. But for the most part, people are like, "Holy crap, this is what I wanted," right? Like, it's one of the biggest continual questions that I get over time is what should I use for this? What should I use for this? Tim, what ATS, what sourcing tech, what interview tech, what this, what that, blah, blah, blah. And I get those questions every single day in some form or fashion. And so this is a great one where I just said, like, hey, here's what I'm going to do. Now, was there this big algorithmic, educated reason of why I put a company at 12 versus 24? No, there wasn't. Here's the thing. There is upwards of 5,000 recruiting technologies on the planet. And there's new ones coming out every single day. That's not an exaggeration. There's literal new ones coming out. And so being 100 and being number 99 on a list of 100 is not a bad thing. It's actually a super positive thing. You're being recognized as a top 100 product in a world of thousands of products. Did I miss a couple here and there? I did, and I did end notes where I explained like, hey, here's why I might have missed somebody. More than likely, you just haven't communicated with me, and I just you're not top of mind. I didn't didn't know, didn't remember, whatever that might be. There's a handful of those people. We'll correct that for the next time, so that they're coming back and forth, reaching out, and I'll do briefings. And again, I'll probably do this list again next year, and there'll be movement, right? Um, I got some fallout and feedback from people that were upset that I had LinkedIn and Indeed in the top 5, and I said, "Well, talk to me about a technology and recruiting that the vast majority of us use every single day. If you're in recruiting, you probably use LinkedIn every single day you're working. If you're in recruiting, you definitely touch Indeed every single day or week that you're working in terms of candidate flow. So we can love to hate them, but we use them every single day. So to me, that justified kind of why they're where they're at on the list from that standpoint. Um, go to my site timsackett.com. You can download that list. It's pretty easy to find. If you can't, send me a message on LinkedIn. I'll send it to you. Um, I had Workday on there again. You can love Workday, you can hate Workday from a recruiting ATS perspective. Um, but it's one of the fastest growing market share wise. There might be more recruiters using Workday on a daily basis than any other ATS or any other recruiting product besides LinkedIn and Indeed. And so again, I think they've made big strides over the last decade, and they'll continue, right? When you have that many people using it. Now, I could have said, said, "Oh, well, I'm not going to put them on the list because, there's people that don't like them." But the reality is, they're talking about these are the top products. This is what people are using. Love it or hate it. This is kind of the way it goes. And so there's that. Um, there was a handful of like true brand new, like in the last 24 months, AI products that are on that list. Um, Next year there'll be way more because there's so many that are coming out and hitting. There's such what it struck me when I was building the list was there seemed to be like maybe like 4 real buckets of recruiting technology. Clearly, you have an ATS. You have sourcing technology, you have interview technology, and then you have like this bucket of kind of selection, like help us like either match or assessment or figure out how do we like dig through the vast majority of candidates we have to the best ones. Those are kind of the buckets, right? That are there. Now, again, the hard part is you take those kind of buckets and you go, well, wait a minute, there's so many of these that overlap. And so then you have like, there's whole category of all in one, right? Is where like people go, oh, I just want one technology that does everything. And there's a bunch of those that usually, if you take a look at them, there's a core product that they started with and they just kept adding, right? And to the point where you're like, oh, we do all of this stuff. And then there's a bunch of like, I think specialty products around like employment branding and recruitment marketing and advertising, all of these other pieces as well. But again, really, really great technology. But it is like, it's weirdly out of the 100, I think you could fit 80% of the 100 into like 4 categories. And then the other 20% are these still the specialty kind of pieces that aren't built in to the other ones from that standpoint, what I really like. Um, so yeah, like I love the exercise of putting that together was fun. Giving the reasoning of why I think I have them on the list and what they do. Again, I'm a fan of all this technology. So if you expect that you're going to go pull up that list and it's Tim, making fun of some technology being 87, you're going to be mistaken. Um, Again, the 100 products I put on there, I'm a fan of all 100 in terms of, again, what they do, where they do, who impacts those, who touches those on a kind of daily, weekly basis. I think are all pretty exciting. And there's probably another 100 that I could do another list, add on. I could probably go 200 deep. Once you go beyond that, you're talking about pieces of technology that again, they might be good, but they're touching so few people that it's just I might know of them, but 99.9% of people will never even heard of these, technologies. Um, so there's that. It's a market share piece at that point. So yeah, maybe I'll expand it. Who knows? Maybe I'll have a kind of an honorable mention, list at the bottom of those that are out there, especially if I have ones that fall off. Because again, like I said, like I love this our space, and I love all 100 that I put on there. I say love. I'm excited about our space, and I'm excited about the technologies that are out there. Last thing I wanted to talk about today was the layoff stuff. We tend to be in a world of noise where we hear like about layoffs all the time, and it's like I had one the other day. It was like IBM laid off 6,000 HR people, blah blah blah, and because of AI, and this company laid off, Google laid off 1,200 people, um, and and I like you take a look at it, part of this is like the noise around social media, LinkedIn and X, and all like Facebook and Instagram and all the other news places. Like everybody is just they're on a constant minute by minute search for what if it bleeds, it leads. We need some negative piece of information, to like breaking news to throw out there at us. And I really had this feeling because like when you take a look at the unemployment numbers, and again, we can get it, we can dig in and argue about, oh, it's underemployed and this and that and blah blah blah. At this point, we've run unemployment numbers for so long that the number, if you're truly in a recession, we saw this like in COVID when like a bad thing happens, you'll see the unemployment number move drastically, right? With bad instances, bad things. We haven't really seen that number really move a whole lot. Now, again, there's a couple reasons for this. One is we have this huge baby boomer retirement thing that's happening every single day, month, week, year, annually. There's literally millions of people on an annualized basis leaving the workforce. We don't have a workforce underneath that is replacing it. We don't have a birth rate that's replacing, and we haven't had that for 2 decades in the US. And so those two things are kind of working together to help us to keep this unemployment number low. Um, Also, coming out of COVID and the amount of money that the government threw into the system, I can't think of one business that was doing poorly. Like, it seemed like everybody was hiring and freaking out, and unemployment was all time lows. People were jumping job to job, getting more money. Like everything was crazy town for a while, and all of a sudden now it's starting to slow down, and the slowdown feels like it's this major kind of pullback. In reality, when I look at the layoff numbers happening by many of these businesses, now again, there's always one-offs, but for the vast majority of really large companies that are laying off, this is corrective numbers. They're talking 1% or less of their workforce. Like it's tiny. And I believe like at any point I could go into any company and lay off 10% of your workforce, and you would see absolutely nothing happen in terms of overall productivity, and like what's going on. And so when you're seeing a company like Google go, oh, we're going to lay off 1,200 people, they could lay off 1,200 people at any point and it has zero impact to anything. Now, again, those 1,200 people got impacted clearly. Um, but there was one too, like I saw a headline the other day. It was like the State Department laid off, like again, it was like maybe 2,000 people or whatever. And people were like, oh my God, this is so terrible. And it is for those people, but when you took a look at the growth of the State Department over the last 4 years, you're talking it was like a 30,000 person increase, and they were laying off 2,000. Like if I hired 30,000 people, I can guarantee you 3,000 of those people were terrible performers. So 2,000 is just a touch of what was should have happened already at any organization. And so again, we tend to like lose our minds over these layoff numbers. And if you're impacted by a layoff, definitely, right? It's a massive issue. And I say broad stroke. I don't think everyone that gets laid off is a poor performer. I'm just saying organizations can make these moves, like especially when you're coming out of this segment of time where you had so many people being hired and a lot of bad hiring happening. And so it's easy for companies to go, oh, because of the impact of AI and the use of AI, we're being able to actually reduce our numbers. A lot of companies do this because it's that's actually from a market standpoint, from a brand standpoint, that's like easier to say, hey, we did really bad at hiring over the last 5 years, and we have a lot of dead weight we want to get rid of. Nobody wants to say that. They would rather go, oh, because of AI, we need to reduce some people, blah, blah, blah. They they could have reduced this. I don't it's still pretty rare. It's still pretty a one-off where a company has implemented AI such that it can actually reduce the number of headcount they have. Like I'm not telling you right now. That's just it's the same rate when I go, hey, I need real stories of AI being used and having a major impact to a process, a function within your company. Those stories aren't being shared publicly all over the place. We're not hearing those every single day. I'm not hearing 10 or 25 of those. I don't have vendors sharing those stories. So if you think companies are already doing layoffs because AI has had this major impact, they're using that as the story, but it's not the real story. The real story was, hey, we've been overhiring for the last 5 years, and it's we need to get things are slowing down a bit, and we need to get right size. And so this is kind of a good way to kind of use this as an excuse. Now, do I know this for 100%? No, I don't. Like this, but this is what if I dig in and I'm taking and having conversations with people, it feels like that's the reason, right? That's what we're doing. So, anyways, that's what I have for you today. I hope your summer is going amazing. I hope you're being able to stay cool or stay warm or whatever you want to do. Get out in the water, have fun. If you're watching this on YouTube, you probably know like, wow, Tim is aging quickly. I'm doing some chemo, cream, skin cancer stuff. So I'm gonna look like Deadpool for the next 3 weeks of my summer. So yeah, in Zencaster where I record my podcast on, doesn't allow like the cool Zoom filters that kind of make you look pretty. I wish they did because then you wouldn't have to look at my Deadpool face. You would just look at, oh my God, Tim looks so young right now. Just not the way it's happening. So, anyways, next time, guys, I'll be back probably with a guest. Maybe not. Who knows? Nah, it's probably going to be a guest. But check out the next episode. Had a couple of Exos drop the last couple of weeks with Jonathan Reynolds at Titus Talent. So if you haven't heard that one, go check that out. We did. I just find him as being an amazing leader. We also talked with Daniel Chait at Greenhouse around candidate fraud, and I'm sure like throughout the rest of the year, I'll be talking more about this candidate fraud, big F, little f. We're seeing massive amounts of fraud taking place with candidates, and the numbers are increasing in a pretty alarming rate. And this is one of those things where heads of HR, heads of TA are like, Tim, like, come on, like we haven't seen any of this. This isn't a big deal. It's not a big deal until it becomes the only deal in your company because you hired somebody in a remote position that completely was fraudulent to you. You gave them access to your systems and they hijacked all of your systems and data, right? And that's happened to companies. Companies have been held hostage for millions of dollars. And so again, how do we combat that? And you're starting to see your chief security officer in IT get involved, coming into HR, coming into TA, and having these conversations because what they found was the hiring process is one of the biggest vulnerabilities that we have. So Greenhouse obviously has done something with their ATS and helping. You're going to see more of this technology come out because it's something that's moving very quickly. And I think companies are really starting to understand like, oh no, we have to make sure this doesn't happen to us. So look forward to hearing some more about that. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your, summer. I'll be back with some more episodes and we'll try better next time. For HR Famous, Tim Sackett, I'm out. We'll see you next time.